Kamala Harris has a new book titled 107 Days, and in it, she addresses the now infamous interview that never was with Joe Rogan. And apparently, she was very excited to do the interview. She really was. So why didn't it happen? Well, let's start with what Harris said happened, and then we'll give you Rogan's side of the story. So Harris writes that she and Rogan had initially agreed that he would interview her in Detroit, which I don't believe. Rogan is not a journalist and he doesn't travel around the country to interview politicians. He does a podcast, his guests come to where he is, and he does a 2.5 hour to 3 hour long podcast with his guests.
I've literally never seen him travel. Maybe he has and I didn't see it, but it would be exceedingly rare if it's ever happened.
Exactly, so, but then according to her, he changed his mind and asked her to record in Texas. Harris said that was a big ask considering every minute in a swing state mattered at that point late in the election. But she wrote that she was game despite reservations from some of her team if they could wedge it in.
Okay, can I pause there for a second? Because I want to explain how stupid that is. Okay, so assume it's true, right? So you're gonna go do some rando thing in a swing state that's not gonna get any media coverage because you're just doing a cheerleading thing with talking points. We saw it, nobody covered those events. Instead of going on the largest podcast in America, where you could literally reach, what did Trump's get, about 100 million views? Something in that ballpark? So you chose not to address 100 million people because you were gonna do an irrelevant rah-rah event in a swing state? Do you know how politically negligent that is?
No, I thought it was a great political calculation. So much so that she's still having to answer questions about it today.
And her excuses actually make it worse.
It makes it worse because the lie is so obvious. But anyway, let's
But even if it isn't a lie, Anna, it's saying, I don't know anything about modern American politics. I don't realize that going on that podcast is way more valuable to a campaign than doing an insular campaign rally where a bunch of Democrats go, are we all gonna vote for each other? Yeah. That's totally irrelevant compared to that podcast. And to this date, she still doesn't realize it.
So she also wrote, even though most of my team thought doing the interview at all was a gamble, and to be sure it was a gamble, and others bluntly argued it was a bad idea, I really wanted to do it. One podcast was not going to win or lose the election, but Rogan's audience was young and male. I wanted to reach those guys who might not otherwise hear from me. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, like I don't think it would have been a good idea for her to go on Rogan's podcast. Now, once it became a public issue, you really have no choice, like you gotta do it. But it should never have gotten to that point to begin with. And the reason why I say that is because while I don't believe this was always the case with Kamala Harris, I've seen her career earlier where she was totally fine. But at some point during the Biden administration, she forgot how to speak publicly. She forgot how to think for herself, how to make arguments for herself, how to explain what her actual sincere political positions happen to be. You cannot hide your ignorance or your incompetence or your failings in a 3 hour long conversation. And that's what Joe Rogan's podcast is. You're gonna be outed. Who you really are ends up coming out in a lengthy conversation like that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have one caveat to what you said there, and then I want to go back to something Kamala Harris said. So look, you can lie about a lot of things over 3 hours because Trump did. Trump had the interview with Rogan and he said a bunch of gibberish that didn't make any sense. But what you can't hide is your authentic self.
Exactly.
So like Trump is authentically a con man, and so and a blusterer. Even if you don't think he's a con man, he certainly has a lot of bluster. So he'll go in and then the whole 3 hours will be gone, but you'll get a sense of who Trump is. Okay, you like, you don't like, right? So Joe Rogan doesn't do very tough follow-up questions, but you get a rough sense. Kamala Harris and a lot of Democratic politicians, unfortunately these days, there is no authentic self. All it is like something that was manufactured at a factory run by Democratic consultants. So the correct opinion to have here is you're in favor of the corporate CEOs, and then you're in this, and then they give them the talking points, and that's why they sound like robots. When they go on mainstream media, they know they only get like 5 minutes. how much they speak is about 3 minutes in a normal interview. So can you do like Sarah Palin did back in the day? She realized, running in the first, she said I was really nervous and about the debate, about interviews and stuff. And then I realized I could just memorize talking points. And you just, no matter what the question is, you state that. That was Kamala Harris 101. So people would have found out that she has no authentic self. That's why Anna's right. That's why we shouldn't have picked her. But we didn't pick her, she was anointed. And then lastly, on this, Kamala Harris, as Anna read to you, said, I wanted to reach those guys who might not otherwise hear from me. So then my question is, so why didn't you? So she's making it seem like her staff overruled her. Well, then I don't want you as president. Like if I want to do something and I'm running for president, I'm not gonna say, Democratic consultant told me not to, so I didn't. That reeks of weakness. If you wanted to do it, you should have done it. Don't tell me afterwards, I didn't do it because I was led by Democratic consultants. I'm so weak I couldn't object.
Harris's team asked Rogan if the interview could take place on October 25th when Harris would be in Texas for a rally. Rogan's team stated that was a personal day for Rogan and asked if the 26th was possible. Harris was unavailable that day and the interview never happened. Harris also stated that on Rogan's personal day, October 25th, he interviewed Donald Trump. So there's Harris's side of the story, and I don't believe her excuse at all. So what did Rogan have to say about this? Well, let's turn to him because he addressed the situation actually a few times now. And he says that here's what he said on February of this year.
One of the things he said that weren't true was that we lied about the day that Trump was coming on. No, we just didn't tell you that Trump was coming on. He was already booked a long time ago. This is how it worked. Trump was really easy to book, like super easy. We offered one day, he said yes, that was it. They never committed to doing the show. So all this talk, there was another thing they said that the reason why they did the Beyonce thing, the Beyonce event in Houston, was so that they could be in Texas to do my show. They never agreed to do the show. They also said that they sent someone down here to the studio to do a walkthrough of the set. That's not true. Even after Trump went on, they offered for me to come to DC and do a show with Kamala. But even then, it was the same deal. It was only like 45 minutes to an hour. And it was not on my set. I wanted to release both of them on the same day. This was my goal. I was even trying to figure out if there was a way that I could do it. And I even offered to do it late that night. So the night that Trump came on, I'm like, what if we do her, like when she's done in Texas, if she came here? But no one ever committed to doing it.
We love finding folks who are good fits for us, right?
I love good fits.
When you're sleeping, you definitely need a good fit. So I don't get enough sleep during the weekdays, but because of Lisa Mattress, at least on Saturdays, I'm getting some great sleep and I'm waking up in the morning thinking, I got this. So I love that they have free shipping. I love that they have easy returns. That's super critical for me. 100-day trial. What else do you want?
You got to get that trial.
And they've given away 42,000 mattresses. We love companies trying to do good in the world. So they're good guys and they've got great mattresses.
They're philanthropists.
You can't lose with this. So that's why we picked them. We hope you do too.
Go to lisa.com for 25% off, plus get an extra $50 off with promo code TYT exclusive to our viewers. That's LEESA.com, promo code TYT for 25% off, plus an extra $50 off. But be sure to enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent you. Lisa.com, promo code TYT. I believe him, I do. I believe him. I don't think that her argument really makes much sense. Rogan wasn't even finished with Harris yet. Here's more.
They wanted a stenographer in the room. They wanted staff in the room. They wanted Trump was just in here by himself.
Yeah,
just me, him, and Jamie. That's it, for 3 hours. Like they wanted to do everything. They wanted it very controlled, and they were really concerned that it wasn't going to be edited. So I don't think they ever really were sure they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Even then, when they offered to do it in DC, my manager asked, "Is she committed to doing this? If I bring this to Joe?" No, she hasn't committed to doing this. You talked to what's that guy's name? Brett Breyer.
Yeah.
Where they cut that off after 20 minutes. When they did that, that's when I was like, look, it's got to be in the studio. It's got to be in the studio and it's got to be real. It's got to be a real conversation. I had entertained a couple of times going to, but I was like, 45 minutes is just not enough. You know, you and I have been talking an hour and a half already. Yeah. It's just like, it's not enough time. You need more time. You need more time to find out what makes someone tick.
And that's probably what she was afraid of.
Probably what they were afraid of. Maybe not her. I don't think they should have been. I think we would have had a good old time.
No, you're a good guy.
I think we would have had fun.
All right, we've got 1:30. Go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, I believe him 100%. So one of the reasons I believe him is because he says honest things like, yeah, we didn't tell him about when we were gonna do the Trump interview. So like he's admitting that they were, they played that game with them. Whereas the Kamala Harris people never admit any fault. And yeah, that sounds like Democrats. Come to DC and then maybe we'll give you an interview. Okay, which leads me to my most important point. Hey, schmucks of the world that run the Democratic Party, when the biggest show in America asks you to come on right before an election, you go on. It's not complicated at all. At all. You don't go, oh, maybe 45 minutes, maybe you come here and then maybe I give you an interview, maybe I don't. No, you go, yes, of course I'd like to come on. Why? Like if I was the candidate, oh my God, I would have done it twice, 3 times, 4 times. I would have done every podcast 2, 3 times over. Why? Because you're trying to reach people. You're trying to convince them. You're trying to get them to vote for you. Democratic politicians don't even try. And then they wonder, oh, how did we lose? You lost because you didn't even bother making your case. And now you want to try to convince me afterwards with an obvious bunch of lies. And even if they were true, it reeks of weakness. Oh, we couldn't handle an interview. Oh, my consultants told me not to do it. Pathetic. For God's sake, next time we have a primary, let's pick someone strong and smart that can make our case for us instead of weaklings constructed by Democratic consultants who robbed the party blind.
Yet another book has come out in regard to the 2024 presidential race and former President Barack Obama's role within it, especially on the Democratic side. Now, according to Fight, inside the wildest battle for the White House, Obama really did not want Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee after former President Joe Biden dropped out. Take a look.
He didn't think that she could win. And we spoke to people very, very close to him who say this, and there were major concerns. So I think they were doing a quiet sort of lobbying effort to see, what the mood was and whether there was enough support for it. Certainly, I think Barack Obama was hearing from some donors. I know Nancy Pelosi was too, that Kamala Harris couldn't win. They kept doing this up until the final minutes of, right after Joe Biden endorsed Kamala Harris. I think they were still calling around. It's why I think Barack Obama kept his powder dry for several days. He wanted to see how all of this would play out, but he had major concerns.
What were the concerns? What were the nature of the concerns?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that she just wouldn't be able to win. I think that they all saw her as a weaker vice president. I don't think that they felt like Joe Biden had really championed her enough, that she was coming in kind of ill prepared to run as president. Certainly, they look back at her last campaign, I'm sure.
I mean, look, Obama was right. I mean, Obama wasn't wrong. He was right. And look, the whole thing was a mess because you have the disastrous Joe Biden debate. He waits a month before he finally drops out and robs Democratic voters from an opportunity of taking part in some sort of primary to pick a better candidate. And I'm sorry, it's now over. So let me just be very clear. She was a very bad candidate. She wasn't funny, she wasn't interesting. I didn't buy into brat summer, whatever the F people were trying to sell us. Lee Fong, a wonderful journalist, just recently published an investigative report he did for Real Clear Investigations. And in it, he found that the entire, all the hype around Kamala was bought and paid for by Democratic billionaires. Okay, all of these public figures and influencers, they didn't give a damn about Kamala Harris. Who knows if they actually voted for her or even support her, but they were paid to go out there and pretend like she was awesome, like she's the best candidate. They tried to manufacture, support for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And honestly, anyone paying attention and anyone who knows how politics works in America could see through it. I was able to see through it. But here's the other thing. You weren't even able to tell the truth. You weren't even able to do accurate analysis of Kamala Harris and how she was running this campaign. Because if you did, you're helping Trump win, you need to shut the F up.
Yeah.
And just pretend like she's a great, fabulous candidate who's definitely gonna win, even though the aggregate of polls consistently showed her trailing Donald Trump.
Yeah, so there's another group to watch out for here, and that's those so-called influencers in MSNBC. They're actually in the same bucket.
Yes.
Because look, guys, we'll get back to Obama and Biden because Obama didn't want Biden to run either, and I thought that was obvious for reasons I'll explain. But for Harris, it was exceedingly obvious because Biden drops out. And at that point in the beginning, all of them, Biden, Obama, and Pelosi, and Schumer, none of them endorsed Kamala Harris. Normally the establishment anoints, as they did with Biden in 2020. You remember Obama called everyone, got everybody, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, et cetera, to drop out of the race in South Carolina so that Biden could get all the votes so that Bernie didn't win, right? And so they all did exactly what Obama told them to do, and he coordinated that. And that worked to make sure that Bernie lost so that we couldn't have a populist option so Donald Trump could win. Anyways, okay, that's a different gripe. So now when Biden drops out, no one endorses Harris. That's obvious that they are not anointing. Super obvious, because we've seen them anoint in 2020. We've seen them anoint Hillary Clinton in 2016, and they're a machine. They all get on board. They all say that unity, unity, unity. Anyone who doesn't listen is a heretic and should be driven from the party, et cetera. In this case, the fact that, so Biden then screws them over. Half an hour later, he puts out a statement going, oh yeah, I think it should be Kamala. Biden didn't want Kamala at all. Biden thought Kamala was a disastrous candidate. He did that to screw over the Democrats like Obama and Pelosi who would push them out because he's such an egomaniac.
Yeah.
He's a nasty, mean, terrible narcissist, right? But the plan was none of us are going to endorse her because we should have an open convention because she's a disaster.
Right.
Obama and Pelosi stick with that plan for an excruciating 5 days because everybody's going, why isn't Obama endorsing her?
Yeah.
Why isn't Pelosi endorsing her? Meanwhile, everyone is endorsing. Within 2 days, because of Biden, she rounded up all the delegates. And even after she got all the delegates, Obama and Pelosi hesitated before endorsing her, right?
That's crazy, yeah.
But when you point that out, what happens is, and this happened to us, and me in particular, all of the influencers online that are literally paid to kiss Democratic leadership ass, right? But to be fair to them, they genuinely believe it. I mean, they think that the path to victory is kiss ass harder, right? And that they'll yell at anyone not kissing ass. And they're like, how dare you, you're helping Trump. Their number one their thing is, you know how Democrats are like, there's nothing we could do, there's nothing their song is, you're helping Trump, you're helping Trump, you're helping Trump, no matter what you say.
Yeah, you're
like,
a secret right-winger, you're helping Trump, you're voting for Trump. No, I can see the Democrats for what they are. What they're doing.
And it doesn't matter from day one, the minute Biden gets into office, if you criticize Biden at all or any Democratic leader, you're helping Trump, you're helping Trump, you're helping Trump. So that's their propaganda. They don't even know it, they're so in their own bubble. And MSNBC, same thing. So when we were saying, well, look, Obama's not endorsing. Obama's not endorsing. Look, your beloved Obama, not my beloved, your beloved Obama, your beloved Pelosi doesn't want it to be Kamala Harris. They're like, you're lying, that's crazy, there's no way, Obama loves Kamala Harris, you're trying to help Trump. How did that help? How did that help? What did you do, you knuckleheads? You actually foiled your beloved Obama's plan, which was to do an open primary. And your beloved Pelosi, you ruined her plan. Why? Why did Obama, Biden, Pelosi, and Schumer not want Kamala Harris? Because they've been dealing with her all this time. They know she wasn't gonna win. They know she's not up to the job. But you wouldn't, but now turn around and criticize those leaders. So your profile encouraged Barack Obama was to whisper behind the scenes.
Yeah, totally.
Whisper, whisper,
Get a
whisper.
load of this, get a load of this, okay? According to the authors of that book, Fight, Amy Parnas and Jonathan Allen, Obama never thought Harris could beat Trump, but backed her when he saw he was under threat himself, suddenly in a position where his actions against Biden and Harris could diminish him in the eyes of Democratic elites.
Oh no, please. No diminishing for the grand legacy of benighted Barack Obama. I mean,
Terrible.
my God, what if his feelings were slightly hurt up in Martha's Vineyard? Okay, so look, here's what a real leader would have done. Okay, would have made his issues with Biden public a year earlier, right? So they would have had plenty of time. Instead, what did he do? He sent David Axelrod to go speak out against Obama.
Oh my God.
Against Biden over and over.
So true.
And so,
yes.
Anna, what I kept saying, I'm like, Carville and Axelrod are the two guys trying to push Biden out on the airwaves. Who does Carville represent? Bill and Hillary Clinton. He's their top strategist, their top go-to guy. Who does David Axelrod represent? He's Barack Obama's top go-to guy and strategist.
Yes.
The Clintons and the Obamas are telling you to push Biden out. And every time I said, they're like, oh, that's not crazy. Speculation, there's no way. Axelrod, I bet he never talks to Obama. I bet Carville never talks to the Clintons. Come on, guys. Come on. All that denying of reality. And what did it get you? It got you a loss to Trump. But I swear to this day, I guarantee you, if one of those influencers or one of those hosts on MSNBC is watching this, they'd be like, no, if these meddling kids just hadn't criticized Biden or criticized Kamala, we would have won. It was your fault. You should have had no accountability. You should have just lied like the rest of us. No, Kamala doesn't do word salads. Biden is young and dynamic. You guys thought you could trick the whole country into believing this nonsense that you believed. Well, it didn't work. So are you ever gonna learn any lessons? Obama, you're worried about what will the Democratic elites think of me? So Anna interrupted when I said, what would a real leader do? He would have come out and said, okay, a year earlier against Biden, and he would have said, as soon as Biden dropped out, I think there should be an open convention. Okay, if Obama had said that, you know what we would have had? An open convention.
I agree, and look, let's not forget the race dynamics that play a role in all of this, right? Because when there were some conversations happening prior to Biden dropping out, there was a lot of fear that if Kamala Harris wasn't his automatic replacement, well, Black women wouldn't vote for whoever the Democratic nominee is. They'd feel slighted by the Democratic Party. But having someone like Obama come out immediately and call for an open convention, that would be different. I think that would maybe mitigate.
No, that would have changed the whole dynamic because they've spent their whole lives worshiping Obama and Pelosi.
That's exactly right, yes.
If Obama and Pelosi, a woman and an African American, the two leaders of the Democratic Party came out and said, guys, we think we should have an open convention. We love Kamala Harris. We think she might be able to win the open convention. We have a lot of faith in her, but we need to pick the best possible candidate and we need to hear from the Democratic voters.
Yeah.
The voice of the voters is the most important thing. Let's go to a convention and sort this thing out, and we're rooting for Kamala, right? What would have happened is we would have had an open convention because the DAC community, the Democratic ass-kissing community, they will do anything a Democratic leader tells them. And Obama and Pelosi have more credibility than Biden, who had just dropped out. If they had told him open convention, all of DAC would have turned around on a dime and would have said open convention, right? And hey, if you're in DAC, remember, what would an open convention have done? Why did I and Obama and Pelosi agree? Because we wanted to pick the best candidate so that we could beat Trump.
You could run and tell DAC.
Okay, and so it wasn't because Obama wanted to hurt the Democrats. It wasn't because Pelosi wanted to hurt the Democrats and wanted Trump to win. It's because they wanted to pick the best candidate. But the difference between me and, if we're being honest, Obama and Pelosi here, is that they didn't have the courage to say it publicly.
Yeah, it's true.
There were many things that we knew would happen. Many things, I'm not here, so I told you so.
She may have told the American people, she may have warned the American people, but she didn't do it compellingly enough to win.
That is the absolute point. And look, when I criticize, I'm criticizing myself. I own this, I'm part of the ticket. And somebody has to come up with a strategy.
Well, some cracks are beginning to form between Kamala Harris and her 2024 presidential running mate, Tim Walz, with the latter taking issue with something Harris said in public recently. Now, last week, Kamala Harris made her first public appearance in months, speaking at the Leading Women Defined Summit in California. This happened last Thursday. And she used this as an opportunity to look at American voters and say the following.
We are seeing organizations stay quiet. We are seeing those who are capitulating to clearly unconstitutional threats. And these are the things that we are witnessing each day in these last few months in our country. And it understandably creates a great sense of fear. Because, there were many things that we knew would happen. Many things, I'm not here, so I told you so.
I'm just gonna go to you because, no, I'm gonna say it. You were a crappy candidate. And you were part of a group of people who provided cover for a man who was falling apart mentally speaking, but decided to run anyway. Decided to stay in the race for a month after that disastrous debate against Donald Trump. And then when Biden, the most unpopular sitting president, called you up before the debate and told you, remember, kiddo, no daylight between us, do not differentiate yourself from me, you listened. So to sit there or stand there and give a speech about, I told you so, I told you so. These are the worst people, man. They really are, okay? No, we all knew what Donald Trump was. We all knew. And for all the Democratic ass kissers out there who provided cover for the bad behavior of that administration, they directed their ire toward people like us who kept warning the Democrats, you're gonna lose to Trump, you're gonna lose to Trump, you're pushing unpopular policies, you're gaslighting Americans on the issue of immigration. If you do that, that creates an opening for someone like Donald Trump to come in and do what he's doing in regard to mass deportations, do what he's doing in regard to literally deporting people before they even have a single day in front of a judge to adjudicate whether or not they're undocumented, to adjudicate whether or not they're actually gang members.
Yeah.
So for all, by the way, all the left-wing media folks who directed their ire toward me, and they're like, you see that? Anna's getting what she wants. No, I'm not getting what I wanted. I wanted Democrats to stop gaslighting American citizens and acknowledge what was going on in the country and provide their solutions for it.
Too much to ask for.
Too much to ask for. Anna's the problem. Big, strong, big, bad Anna. With all of her power, she's the one who swung the election, right? I can't stand these people. They're the worst. They're the worst.
Okay, let alone me. I'm gonna start with a small thing and then get bigger. So first, I also can't stand her dramatic pauses that never lead to anything. Like, you're supposed to do the pause if you're really gonna deliver a point. Like,
I can't stand them.
Every politician is taught this. She's so bad at it. They're always anticlimactic. Okay, that's minor. Now you get to the laugh, right? So guys, if anyone can say told you so, I would argue that it's us. And I would say even more specifically me, okay? So why? And then let's talk about the difference in the told you so's. Number one, a year and a half ago, we started a campaign, now even longer, I think, to get Biden out of the race. Why? Because we weirdly hate Biden? No, I mean, I'm not a fan of Biden's, but the reason to get him out of the race that early was because he was gonna lose to Trump. And what I kept saying on the show, and we did a petition and Young Turks viewers signed it, they should get all the credit. They were prescient enough all the way back then to say, guys, we're not gonna beat Donald Trump with a guy who can't talk. We at the Young Turks, our viewers have eyes and ears. And we can see that he's super old, can't finish his sentences, mumbles, repeats. He's a disaster, and his popularity is in the 30s. And for an incumbent in the 40s, you always lose. In the 30s, it's almost impossible to win. So these are just facts. He'd lost Latinos, he'd lost young people. It was nearly impossible to win. So we were the ones who cared the most about Democrats winning and Trump losing. So we're like, can you please try to win? And be like, how dare you? Winning is not important, even though we're saying democracy's on the line and the other side is Nazis. Winning is not nearly as important as protecting Democratic leadership. So if Joe Biden, the incompetent man with obvious dementia, if the Mad King says he's staying in the race and we're gonna lose, we all have to bow to the Mad King. You, Young Turks hosts and audience, and all of you, you guys defying the Mad King is a much bigger crime than Joe Biden's giant ego saying, I don't care if I have dementia, I want it to be me and only me. And I don't care if I lose to Trump, as long as it's me. That egomaniac fool and all of his advisors put us on the ship headed straight toward an iceberg. And we kept screaming, it's an iceberg straight ahead. And they would yell at us, oh, look at these guys warning about an iceberg. It's your fault, you created the iceberg. No, we didn't, you incompetent fools. Then what did we say? Once Biden finally dropped out and we were 100% right, we said do an open convention, please do an open convention. Obama and Pelosi didn't endorse Kamala Harris. They didn't endorse because they know she's a disaster. Biden did endorse because he knows she's a disaster and he wanted her to lose. So he could say his version of, I told you so, my career is so much more important. As we told you all these I told you so's, do you see me laughing? No, you know why? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who was right in terms of the consequences and the damage. It matters for the next election. Do not ever listen to these liars. Look at how cavalier she is. That laugh is unbearable. I mean, uproarious laughter. The whole country's in a disaster now. But my career was slightly better off now because I seemed like I was more right than Trump. That's not funny, man. It's not funny. So real people are hurt, and it's so obvious that all the elites in the Democratic Party couldn't care less. The only thing they're obsessed with, just like Trump, is their own ego, their own careers, and their own benefit.
Bingo.
And they disgust me.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't be laughing. You lost to that guy. You lost to that guy.
So that,
what are you laughing about? I mean, it's just, by the way, my other very favorite thing that's happening right now, people are like, oh, Kamala Harris, she might run again. She might run in the next presidential election. And these like left-wing shows play that reaction I had to you mentioning how she might run for governor of California. And I had a very real, yes, knee-jerk reaction to it. I started screaming, no, what are you doing? Don't do that. Because she's a bad candidate.
She's awful.
She sounds like she's drunk.
So
okay,
I know, no, she's the
pretending?
greatest. She ran a flawless campaign. Biden is young.
Stop pretending. Stop pretending. The video she submitted to that little Catholic thing where the roast happened.
Al Smith dinner, yeah.
Yeah, the Al Smith dinner. That video wasn't funny at all, not even a little bit. Okay, she is not a talented politician. She's not a leader. Let's stop pretending like a pile of crap is gold, because it's not.
So look, at the end of the day, since I had no choice and I was positive that Trump didn't give a goddamn about our Constitution and is super stupid and would do the things that he did, I voted for Kamala Harris. Now, for the Kamala Harris fans, can you please come back to earth and reality?
They won't, they can't.
So
they're incapable of it.
If you think she ran a flawless campaign and lost to Donald Trump, how does that make sense? How can you sit there and go, oh yeah, Trump is the worst idiot in the world. Kamala Harris ran a perfect campaign, but somehow magically lost to him. And now there's these people who are drinking like Blue Anon Kool-Aid 24/7. Oh, I think she won. I think she secretly won. Now we got loons on it. Oh, should we raid the Capitol? Okay, so no guys. And by the way, if you're listening to a host who's telling you that Kamala Harris was amazing and that she should run again, you should never trust that host. That host, in a best case scenario, has no earthly idea about politics. They saw that most obvious campaign of all time, saw her bungling it in 8,000 different ways, wrapping her arms around Liz and Dick Cheney, who were at 13% approval, bragging about how 90 corporate CEOs were on her side, and she's the great queen of corporate rule.
Crapping on young Democratic voters who wanted something from her, something in regard to Israel and what they're doing to Palestinians in Gaza. But what did she do? Shut them down, didn't listen to a damn thing they had to say, wouldn't even let a Democratic Palestinian surrogate give a pre-approved short speech at the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
Okay, she's garbage as a candidate, she's not a leader, and she deserved to lose.
And by the way, look, when she came out, picked Tim Walz, talked about price gouging, and said she was going to do something about housing. We said fantastic, because those are good policies. And then what did she do? She turned right around because her donors complained and her stupid brother-in-law, who's a stupid lobbyist, came in and said, "Oh, you got to kiss the ass of corporations." She said, "No, price gouging, I didn't mean it. Tim Walz, I'm putting him in a basement. He's not allowed to talk again. I won't let him do interviews." Okay, and houses, this is the #1 issue. I'm barely gonna talk about it. Instead, I'm gonna have all my surrogates go out and tell you how much corporations love me. So by the way, if you're a progressive, it's one thing to vote for Kamala Harris as I did. Okay, and hold your nose and go, "Man, she was a terrible candidate. She's not gonna deliver on anything, but I can't have Trump terminate the Constitution." Okay, I'm right there with you. But if you're pretending to be a progressive and you're cheerleading for Kamala Harris, and you're cheerleading for the senator from MBNA, that's President Biden, he was known as a senator from a credit card company. And those corporate goons, don't tell me you're a progressive, spare it, okay? You can tell me you're, but hey, Democrats, rah, corporatism, yay. Okay, you can do that, at least be honest about it. But there's nothing progressive about these people.
So Tim Walz came out and responded to what he saw in that speech with Kamala Harris. And I want to go to that video, let's take a look.
What does "I told you so" really mean here? I mean, people heard her message. They did not vote for her. She lost every battleground state. You yourself have criticized the Harris-Walz campaign for being too cautious. She may have told the American people, she may have warned the American people, but she didn't do it compellingly enough to win.
That is the absolute point. And look, when I criticize, I'm criticizing myself. I own this, I'm part of the ticket. And somebody has to come up with a strategy. I think this is exactly right. This is the thing. Look, Democrats, it was a good night in Wisconsin. I was over there, we saw that happen. Donald Trump's doing this. Just to be clear, nobody on the Democratic side is celebrating this. And those folks in the street are not celebrating that Donald Trump's making all these errors. I think what the vice president's saying is that was pretty self-evident that he was going to do that.
You know, the thing I really do appreciate about Tim Walz is the fact that he is willing to self-reflect. He is willing to do something that almost no politician is willing to do, take personal responsibility.
Yes, and he's honest and he's authentic. So give me more Tim Walz. And he got bills passed, progressive bills, populist bills, wonderful bills in Minnesota. That's why we were excited when she picked Tim Walz. We did like 8 different shirts on Tim Walz. We could barely get any excitement on Kamala Harris because she wasn't running on policies that mattered and would make a difference in your life. Tim Walz was. But unfortunately, him being honest, he said something that was very telling there. He says someone has to come up with a strategy. No,
Democrats don't like that. Democrats don't like strategy. They like to pay influencers to pretend like Democrats are perfect, but they don't like to listen to their base. They loathe their base. I mean, how many election cycles have they made that abundantly clear? They loathe their own voters. So they hire these like pubescent like influencers on TikTok to pretend as if the Democrats are perfect and they're totally kicking ass when they're not. They didn't offer anything in the last election. They gaslit Americans who were concerned about very serious issues within the country. And when you do that, you create a vacuum in which Republicans come in, Donald Trump comes in, and he's like, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, so look guys, unfortunately it's pathetic that there isn't a single person in the Democratic Party who's come up with a strategy. I mean, that's the former VP candidate telling you there's no one with a strategy. So there's gonna be one soon. in a couple of weeks, I'm gonna announce something. And then when I do, a plan to take back the Democratic Party and win the White House, you know what everybody's gonna say? How dare you? Who do you think you are? And I have the answer to that. Apparently, the only person with a plan. So as you know, it's a super low bar, guys. And so I encourage you to come up with your own plan, because these Democrats aren't gonna ride to the rescue. You gotta be your own cavalry. So the minute when we announce the plan, we'll literally be the only Democrats in the country that have a plan on how to take back the White House. And that is just super sad.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you.
Kamala Harris returned from her post-election Hawaiian vacation with a bizarre video message to her supporters. So look, Walz, you can't be laughing so hard while I'm trying to present the damn story, okay? You can't be doing that to me.
You can't just show me Kamala Harris going right back to wine auntie after her loss and expect me to keep a straight face. That's ridiculous.
Okay, look, that was just a little snippet. Okay, let's give her a chance. Let's watch more of what she had to say with more context. Watch.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
I feel like I've literally said the same thing with the same tone and body language after getting drunk with my girlfriends at a bar.
Yeah.
Like there's, look, it comes from a good place. So I feel bad mocking her, but it does come across as you put it, wine auntie. Now, Tyler Austin Harper writes, who thought this was a good idea? Who is this for? What is this for? What is she even saying? Once again, I will reiterate that we are ruled by imbeciles. Well, we're not ruled by her at this point. So, I mean, she is still vice president, but still. Jacqueline Sweet writes, this is very deep conversation you have with a stranger in the women's bathroom at a club before adding each other on Instagram and never speaking again. That has happened to me as well. That's exactly what I was thinking as I was listening to her in that video. Now, Harris hosted 2 video calls with supporters post-election. One was with the grassroots supporters. The other was with her wealthy donors who are pretty furious over the fact that she lost the election, and also furious that she squandered $1 billion that they had donated to her. So she also told her supporters, the outcome of this election obviously is not what we wanted. It is not what we worked so hard for, but I am proud of the race we ran. And your role in this was critical. What we did in 107 days was unprecedented. Because of your efforts, get this, we raised an historic $1.4 billion, almost $1.5 billion from grassroots supporters alone. I question that, to be honest. And she says that it's the most in presidential campaign history. Now, her campaign specifically raised $1 billion, and then super PACs supporting her raised another $1 billion. And I have a hard time believing that like 75% of that money was from grassroots donations. But with that in mind, and before we get to some of her donors losing their minds over this, I'm curious what you think, Walz.
I mean, first we can start with the video where she's telling voters that people that voted for her, the people that voted for her, even though she lost and failed, that they have a power and they still have a voice, and a power to do what? A voice to speak against and about whom and what? Like, what are we fighting for? What is our power supposed to be aimed at? Like, what is our purpose, Kamala Harris? What is your purpose, Kamala Harris? Like, it's a Saturday Night Live sketch, excuse me. Like, literally, it's a caricature of this woman who everybody said We don't know who she is. We don't know what she stands for. And her first public appearance after, basically saying, all right, we lost and Trump won, blah, 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 blah. Her concession speech is this gobbledygook nonsense. And it's ridiculous. And it's not hard to see why she got her ass kicked. Okay, cool. Then, of course, they're on this call with their mega donors, their owners, basically, their freaking pimps, basically. And it's funny, man. It's funny, all the kowtowing, all the buck passing, all the David Plouffe getting up there and saying, we didn't cheat well enough. We weren't Republican enough. That's why we lost. We weren't Republican enough. It's hilarious. And there's one conversation that's gonna stick with me after the election. And it's a buddy of mine who used to be a Democratic Party sort of apparatchik. And he was like, yo, what's the point of getting all this money and sucking up to this money if we're gonna lose anyway? We don't need them. So then we don't need to suck up to them. And so we can make them enemies. Period. Like if raising all this money doesn't help us win presidential elections, what's the point of these big donors? Why do we need them? Clearly, they're not giving us great winning ideas that resonate with the people.
Right. No, you're totally right about that. I mean, he's totally right about that. And if he's a Democratic apparatchik and he's come to that realization, former, well,
he's got a new job.
Well, that sucks because we need more people within the Democratic Party, the people behind the scenes, to realize this. Because you're right in noting that members of Kamala's campaign, went on Pod Save America. We talked about it on the show yesterday, and it shocked me that their takeaway was, it's against campaign finance laws for a campaign to coordinate with the super PACs. We think that's what Trump's been doing. And I think what we got wrong is that we weren't breaking the law. We should have broken the law. Like the takeaway was we're not corrupt enough. And we're not, playing around with potentially breaking the law enough. So maybe we should do that next time. No, don't do that. Because this is the issue. What the donors want in return for their campaign contributions conflicts with what the Democratic base wants, what the voters want. And for a long time, Walz, I think that the Democratic Party was kind of able to pay lip service to the economic issues without actually carrying them out, while leaning in heavily on some of these social issues. And when you do that election cycle after election cycle after election cycle, you really have no choice but to get more and more maximalist on the social issues. And I think that's been happening in recent years. And it got to a point where voters are like, look, we want to respect everybody and we believe in equality and all of that. But this is getting a little crazy, okay? My life is not great, okay? Inflation is crushing me. My wages haven't gone up. Healthcare is still a mess. And we're having a conversation about gender reassignment surgeries for illegal immigrant detainees. The reason why that ad that Trump invested so much money in worked so perfectly wasn't because this country is just dripping with transphobes. It worked because it highlighted what the priorities of the Democratic Party has been. And at a time when people are feeling extreme economic frustration for good reason, that kind of ad, oh my God, it's going to be super effective. And I think that's why, that ad keeps getting cited as one of the factors that led to Harris's loss. What do you think?
100%. I don't think, first of all, I'm not of the belief that trans people need to get thrown under the bus in order for the Democrats to get their stuff together. In my opinion, I think what people rejected is that if all you're offering me is trans rights and I'm not trans, what else? You have to offer something on top of that. I think Democrats and liberals and progressives, I think the message of trans rights and equality fits directly with a more populist argument about everyday people needing to get the boot off of their necks and the people who actually are the owners of said boot. Like, I think you can make that argument. I think that message needs to be paired, but it needs to be coherent. And, shouts to our guy, Daniel Bessner, who says it all the time. I think the Biden campaign, the Kamala campaign is just a sign of the failures of liberalism, neoliberalism, whatever you want to call it, because they just don't have anything to offer the people. Just look at what Kamala Harris was saying in that video. What is she offering us? What are they offering us?
Platitudes. I mean, don't you love to hear nice things about yourself and how powerful you are at a time when you feel deeply like unpowerful, like deeply powerless? Like it's but the platitudes don't work anymore. I mean, they might work for a handful of people, loyalists to the Democratic Party.
People who already got it good, Anna, is gonna work for them. Yes, like if you got a nice white collar job and you got a beautifully manicured lawn in a suburb or exurb somewhere in one of these brand new suburban enclaves. Yeah, both you and your spouse got a college degree, graduate level. Yeah, this stuff sounds great. Sorry, I'm cursing a lot, guys. I'm just really fired up.
No, I feel you. I totally feel you.
This stuff sounds great to you, right? Like I get that. However, like to everybody else, which is the vast majority of the people in the country, it doesn't sound great because they're not doing as well. And like just the joke of Chuck Schumer, where he's like, for every working class person we lose, we're gonna get 2 more suburbanites. Just by the sheer numbers of who's working class and who's making $150,000 a year, that math ain't mathing. How you gonna get 2 for 1 when the actual numbers of the people out in the country who this applies to, that's not how it match up. In fact, it's the inverse. It's 2 working class people for every freaking, graduate level, PhD dork out there.
So tell me, who's the dumb one? Because the argument you hear from Democrats over and over again is Trump is the dumb one. But I mean, look, if you want to do a comparative analysis, I would argue the party that is trying to go after more affluent voters or never Trump Republicans and decide that it's a good idea to go around town campaigning with a neocon like Liz Cheney, they might be the dumb ones. They might be way dumber. Because say what you will about Trump, and I have a lot of issues with Trump, but he is intuitive enough and smart enough to know that the working class in this country has been growing more and more furious, frustrated, angry for decades, for years. And when you have one guy purport to want to serve them and make their lives better, and the other party is, throwing concerts for their political rallies and like bragging about Taylor Swift, it's just not going to play well. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, DNC finance member Lindy Lee is particularly furious. She's been doing the rounds. She's been going on a bunch of different shows because she claims that the Democratic Party and specifically the Harris campaign misled her and donors about the likelihood of Harris winning the election. And so she feels that the precious donors were defrauded, which I love. I'm amused by. Okay, so I don't really shed any tears for these donors. And sorry, Lindy Lee, I know you're upset that the Democratic Party lied to you, but more importantly, they lied to the American people. First, there was a cover-up in regard to Biden's mental decline. Then there were nonstop lies about how well Kamala Harris was doing. I mean, there were literally political pundits talking about Kamala Harris sweeping the swing states. She got swept. Okay, like there was no, she didn't win a single swing state. So with that in mind, here is again DNC finance team member Lindy Lee speaking to News Nation about this whole debacle.
I was speaking and texting with fellow attendees of the call, and we were amazed by how self-congratulatory the tone was. I don't recall, the call was about 20, 30 minutes. I don't recall anyone taking responsibility.
Really?
For the fact that we spent about $2 billion across Super PAC and the campaign and came up so significantly short. We lost 7 swing states.
Self-congratulatory in what types of things were being said?
They praised Harris as a visionary leader. I believe at one moment during the call, she was talking about her Thanksgiving recipe. And I don't say this with any malice or anything. I'm just merely conveying what happened. I think I was stunned to hear that, given just the extent and brutality of the loss. There was no sort of postmortem or an analysis of how we can do better, what sort of lessons were learned. It was really just patting each other on the back, congratulating each other on I'm not sure what, and saying we'll see you for Christmas.
Welcome to reality, Lindy, because Democrats taking personal responsibility has been the lack of personal responsibility has been a problem with the party for a long time now. It's just that the donors are now starting to see it. And look, the one thing I'll say is maybe Lindy Lee doesn't realize that she's accidentally confessing to something. She's upset because the donors gave Kamala Harris's campaign money thinking that she has a good chance of winning. They didn't give her the money to help her win. They gave her the money expecting her to win and then do favors for them. So I would like to send these mega donors to the EAD universe where they belong. I don't shed any tears for them. Oh, the wealthy donors. Oh, they're so sad that they were unable to get favors for the money that they shelled out for the Democrat here. Anyway, thoughts on that before we go to the last video?
Yeah, I think that was just a sort of shareholder meeting where, they grilled the CEO about return on investment. And basically the shareholders are basically like, yo, what the hell happened this quarter? Somebody's got to shape up or get shipped out, right? And so that's what that was. But I mean, I don't think she was wrong about the tone of the call.
She's right about that.
When you read the quotes of these people, just like, oh yeah, we just missed a couple of things here, and we only had 101 days, or else we would have got those Republicans. And it's just like, all right, guys, like absolutely no contrition, no like humility of, look, we kind of ruined this and we got this wrong and we need to be better. And the last thing I'll say about this, man, if people don't remember this, and I'm sure you do, Anna. After the Republicans got smoked in 2012, they did the autopsy. And literally, I think that Republican Party internal autopsy is how we got Marco Rubio. Like that dude wouldn't exist without the autopsy, where they're just like, look, the country's browning. Maybe we do like path to citizenship for these folks. Like some of them would be like super Christian and want to rock with us and like blah, blah, blah. They did none of that. Turns out like people stay in America long enough, even if they're Mexican or Cuban or Venezuelan or Puerto Rican, a lot of them will end up being conservative anyway. And everything will be just fine. But I wonder if the Democrats are gonna do some kind of autopsy like that and even try or do a feint at becoming more populist.
Well, Lindy Lee gives us some insight into that. So let's watch the final video.
Of course, you can look at, did we get the best deal here? This was quite costly here. It's quite expensive. At the end of the day, though, I think if you look at the spend we had, the majority of the money we spent, it was to reach voters. We are going to be in a good space across the board, across all of our entities without debt.
In my view, it's extremely detached from reality. And of course, they failed to mention that hundreds of millions of dollars went to them and their friends, right, through these consulting firms. These consultants were the primary beneficiaries of the Harris campaign, not the American people, not the donors, not anybody else. It was the people who, go from one campaign to the next, looking for their next plum gig.
True. When the political system becomes more about a grift in order for people behind the scenes or even the politicians themselves to enrich themselves through the political system, well, that political system isn't going to serve the best interests of the American people. And that has been a problem for a long time now. And so people are sick of the corruption, Waz. People want better representation. No taxation without representation. Like, when are we gonna I'm not going to name it Tea Party because we did have a Tea Party movement and they didn't really resonate with me with some of the stuff they were saying. But we do pay a lot in taxes. And for anyone who thinks that these Scandinavian countries are getting taxed up the wazoo and we're lucky that we're not, you'd be wrong. We're actually taxed a lot and we get far less in return because our government prioritizes giving all the cookies away to defense contractors, to private industry. They love deregulation. Like all of these things have led to the anger that's being directed toward our politicians and particularly the Democratic Party at this moment.